are all facing this. We're hearing from our Tennesseans, we are hearing from small businesses, and people are trying to hang on to every piece of information that they can get. It helps them to stay informed, and we encourage everyone, stay informed, stay up to the minute, talk to us, be on our websites and social media. We all want to get to you the information that you need as quickly as we get it, because that's how we're going to defeat this, is by realizing that we are all in this together, and is going to take every single one of us doing our part to get past it. You know, in my family, we had this mantra that we grew up with, and it was kind of my mother's way of saying, don't sit around and wait, do things. And there were two things she would always say: leave things in better shape than you found them. In other words, always be helping to improve a situation. Leave things in better shape than you found them. She would always say, give back more than you take, stressing to us the importance of being a giver to our community, to our family, to our society, and not being a taker, sitting around feeling like you're entitled and you want people to bring things to you. So in our family, as we approached situations that may have been less than wonderful, or if there had been a hurricane, I grew up in South Mississippi, or a terrible storm, or some other event, we would always look at it and say, leave things in better shape than you found them, and give back more than you take. It was important that action be a part of the solution, not only for our family and our community, but you know, Madam President, right now, taking the right actions, exercising good judgment, is something that is important for our entire nation. And Tennesseans are hard at work helping to address this coronavirus COVID-19 crisis that we are under. Right now, there are 166 members of the Tennessee National Guard that are training to provide support to the Tennessee Department of Health. Altogether, the state currently plans to activate 250 guardsmen to help out at clinics across the state. They will be helping with assessments and screenings. To these National Guardsmen, Guardswomen, to these members and their families that are going to activate in this crisis, bless you, God bless you, and thank you for once again stepping up to help defend our nation and to meet our nation's needs. The Tennessee Air National Guard assisted in transporting 1 million testing kits. They put these on the C-17s that are housed there in Memphis and flew them from Aviano Air Base in Italy to Memphis. And then those kits were divided out and sent to healthcare providers all across the nation to get testing into communities where our citizens are fearing they may have contracted COVID-19. In finding solutions, our scientists at Vanderbilt University Medical Center are working hard in participation with other labs to find a vaccine for this. The Denison Lab, and I had the opportunity to talk to Dr. Denison last week. And we know that in conjunction with other labs, they are expediting the testing that is necessary and finding therapies, antivirals, vaccines This is something that they're focusing on, and they're working as hard as they possibly can around the clock to find these solutions. Of course, we do know, Madam President, if China had been more forthcoming, if they had not tried to keep this a secret, imagine trying to keep this a secret, which is exactly what they tried to do. We would be further along in this process, but we're so grateful, so grateful for these brilliant minds that are researching this and are building off past research from coronaviruses and from SARS, and they are whittling down what can be used to fight this. Indeed, the supercomputer at Oak Ridge and the team of scientists there, working with the supercomputer, the summit, were able to put in a lot of information and distill down to 77 drugs that could be effective in this fight against COVID-19. And, you know, Madam President, you may remember that just as we identified our first case of COVID-19 in Tennessee, that was the week that West and Middle Tennessee was struck by a devastating series of tornadoes. And TEMA, our emergency management agency, and all of the volunteers who have worked on this have done an unbelievable job in the midst of dealing with unprecedented devastation. And again, we thank President Trump for his attention to this, and the people of Tennessee are so grateful for his attention to the concerns of those hit with the tornado in his visit to the state, and FEMA and TEMA working together to address that. So our state has had a full plate, and I say thank you to every Tennessean who has looked at the situation that we're in and decided that they're going to do whatever they can help. And we have a lot of distillers in our state, and God bless them, they're stepping up, and instead of distilling whiskey, they are moving to sanitizers. And yes, to those distillers, we know there is an excise tax problem, and we are on it trying to resolve that for you. And I have to give a shout out to our singers and our songwriters, our musicians. While they cannot go fill the audience at one of the clubs on Lower Broad or one of the concert venues in so many places around our state and up in Pigeon Forge and Gatlinburg, what they're doing is hosting virtual concerts, and they're on Instagram and Facebook, and they're doing this every single day, trying to bring a bit of joy to lift our hearts during a time when we are quarantining and staying separate and apart. How wonderful that we have this technology that will allow us to walk through this entire process of this pandemic together. Here in D.C., we're doing our best to be as positive as we possibly can and to be productive, because we know, as I said on this floor yesterday, we know that this is a very difficult time for small businesses, and it's why I have worked so very consistently and diligently through this process of negotiating our legislative solution to be sure that it includes a small business definition that is going to include the self-employed and the sole proprietors and the independent contractors, so that they are not left in the lurch. And we're continuing to do that. We're hearing from people every day. I heard from the manager of a YMCA that is outside of Nashville, and they've got 65 part-time employees that work in that facility. And this manager is concerned about how nonprofits and small businesses are going to end up being treated in this legislation. He is certainly wanting to keep those people on the payroll. And you know what? I agree with him. We want people to stay on the payroll. And when we get past this 15-day period, we're about halfway through it right now, 15 days to slow the spread that the president and vice president have put in place, we want people to be going back to work. I heard from another business owner. It's a family-owned business, and they do maintenance services like plumbing and electrical work, and they have employees that have been with them since 1993. They have never had to lay off one single employee, and they're concerned about where uncertainty is. We have retail, fabulous homegrown retail entities in Middle Tennessee around Nashville. One of those employers has 5 stores. They are headquartered in Franklin, Tennessee, right outside of Nashville. He is keeping people working even though they're barely bringing in revenue, and he needs us to pass this bill, this rescue bill, so he can keep those employees on the payroll. And then a company that has stood itself up in the last several years, and they're a valuable asset in working with the vulnerable population, moving people from poverty to work, and they're wanting to keep people working. So we're hearing from all of these about the importance to have this bill that will be a bipartisan bill to address the concerns of businesses, large and small, to address the concerns of workers who are working for those businesses, large and small. And what we have had in the bipartisan bill, and hopefully this will move forward, is $350 billion in loans for small businesses. And if people stay working, those become grants. $500 billion in emergency relief through low-interest loans that can go to businesses and hospitals, $242 billion in emergency appropriations across federal agencies. 75% of that money would go to state, local, and tribal governments who are much better at managing their affairs than the federal government. $250 billion in increase and expanded unemployment benefits. I talked about this yesterday. If you're normally going to get $300 in unemployment with the $600 plus up, you're at $900 a week. These are all things to keep the economy going. And then an additional $75 billion to support our hospitals. That's an initial amount for our hospitals and our healthcare workers. So there is much that is in there. Imagine a bipartisan bill including this, including tax rebates for Americans, $1,200 for individuals, $2,400 for joint filers, $500 per dependent child, and student loan deferments for those that are affected by COVID-19. All of that in a bill. But it is so incredibly disappointing to know that we had the failed vote, not once but twice, to get to cloture, to move forward, to get on this bill. And all these good faith negotiations, I have just been appalled, as I said yesterday, with the comments to restructure this bill to meet the progressive vision. You know, there is a season for everything. There is a time and place for everything. And this is neither the time nor the place to have a debate about things like collective bargaining powers for unions and making our airlines meet emission standards, the Green New Deal emission standards by 2025. For goodness sakes, let's keep the airlines flying right now. Wind and solar tax credits, that has nothing nothing to do with COVID-19. Come on, I say to my friends across the aisle, let's set these aside for the appropriate season to discuss this, but it's not now. Election assistance funding, that has nothing to do with COVID-19. Corporate board diversity, nothing to do with COVID-19. Same-day voter registration, the list goes on and on. There is a time and a place. There is a season. And right now, dealing with the crisis in front of us is what should be the center of our attention. I think that yesterday my fellow Republicans and I made it abundantly clear, we do not have time, at this point in time, we do not have time for political games and antics based around a progressive policy wish list. It is disrespectful of the American people. It is hurtful to those that are directly affected by COVID-19, which indeed is everybody. It is important for us to move forward. Now, I didn't get everything I wanted. I would have preferred a payroll tax holiday. I would have preferred rebating income tax that's been paid in for businesses and for individuals. I would have even liked to have seen more of my bipartisan SAMC Act, Securing America's Medicine Cabinet, in that. But you know what? Adults realize you're not going to get everything you want. And reasonable people realize you are not going to get everything that you want. And this is a time where we should be respectful and we should be reasonable and we should apply common sense. We know that the American people are expecting our best efforts, and they are looking forward to a solution. As I said yesterday, I had talked to someone who said, you know, I am scared to death. Small business owner had struggled. Tax Cuts and Job Act allows them to move forward with growth. Teenagers in the house, homeschool starting today. And she said, I am screaming inside silently. I do not want the kids to know that I'm afraid. So I encourage my colleagues, lay down your progressive policy wish list. Lay it down, set it aside. There is a season to everything. There is a time. There is a season. And I encourage you to realize this is neither the time nor the season. Let's address the critical issues in front of us. I yield the floor.